We are live. Good evening. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I am joined by my co-host, Ms. Deidre Payne, and I thought I saw our other co-host, Mr. Darren Guy, Mr. G, but where did he go?
I don't know. It disappeared.
That's weird. And we have two guests tonight, Ms. Jennifer Lynn Nessa from Arizona.
That
Is
is
that correct?
correct. Yes.
Okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you, Jennifer.
Can you hear me now?
When you moved it closer to your mouth, I could hear you better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
We also have Mike, is it Bartz?
Yes, Bartz, B-A-R-T-Z, Bartz.
Okay, Mike, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you too.
Are you?
Mike,
Okay.
you're from North Carolina?
North Carolina, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to do the first part of the show with Jennifer, and then we'll bring you back on after the first 15 or 20 minutes, okay? So stand by. Put you in the green room, so to speak. All right. I guess we did lose Mr. Guy. Jennifer, what's going on with you and CPS in Arizona, our neighbor?
Right. So I have been fighting 5.5 years. It first started out as okay, is it better? Okay, sorry. So I have been fighting 5.5 years. It first started out as a family law case in a divorce, and then DCS got involved. And then I had them back for 3 months in 2020. And then my oldest boy spoke out about some things that happened with his biological father, and DCS took them back into custody. And then I got them on a Rule 50. So I got my youngest boy on a Rule 59 June 1st, 2022, and I had him home for a year. And then my oldest boy, who is special needs, I got him on December 2nd of 2022, and I had him for 7 months. And DCS decided that they weren't going to close the case out because my youngest boy had gotten injured. Found out that he was double jointed, and so then they brought up a Munchausen by proxy investigation, and then they came in and removed the kids on June 13th of 2023.
Time out. Who was the Munchausen by proxy investigation against, you or the father?
Supposedly it's against me.
Are you in the medical profession?
I am not.
Tell the audience what you think Munchausen by proxy is.
So Munchausen by proxy is what I think it is where you make up diagnosis or you make up illnesses for your children to gain attention.
That's a very good definition. It was, I don't think it is now, but it was listed in the mental health book, handbook, where they list all the mental health types of diseases there are. Munchausen by proxy was one of those syndromes that goes back and forth, but it's still recognized by the courts as possible abuse against the child. Anyway, continue with your story, please.
So in March of 2023, my youngest boy got hurt, and then because where we live in a rural area where doctors are not common out here, or don't know much about things unless it's an emergency situation. They put him in a wheelchair. And then we took him to see specialists down in Phoenix. They took him out of the wheelchair and said he was fine. He was just double jointed. I told DCS all that. When they came in on June 13th, they said that I had made no behavioral changes. And that's that, and removed the boys. They didn't tell me anything, that I was being investigated for anything, besides I found out after the fact when we went to court on June 22nd that I was being investigated for the Munchausen by proxy. And then I found out some other things, some lack of supervision, things that happened when I was entrusting a friend to watch my boys, who is listed as a safety monitor. So yeah, and now I have like a TDM coming up, but they want to continue without my attorney present, and I don't want to continue without my attorney present.
Are your kids in your custody right now?
No, my kids are in Phoenix,
With who?
in 2 different foster homes.
Do you live in Phoenix?
No,
How far are they from you?
4 hours.
Hmm.
And I haven't seen them since all this happened on June 13th of this year. And they said that I would not be seeing them, or that they said that I have to have supervised visits, and the supervised visit agency hasn't picked up the case. So as soon as that happens, then I get to see my kids. I asked for phone visits. They said I can't have phone visits. I asked for my boys to have phone visits. They said that would happen. But that's it. My kids are, from what I understand from CFTs, are asking to see me and want to talk to me, but the department isn't allowing it.
Did they ever prove that you had Munchausen syndrome by proxy?
Nope.
Did you ever have a trial regarding that?
Nope. I've never, and I've had two neuropsych evals. Neither one of them said it. Neither one of them speculated anything. And then I have they're sending me yet for another neuropsych eval, and they're sending me for yet another bonding assessment.
Is your attorney court appointed or private?
It is court appointed right now, just because I've exhausted $60,000 in 5.5 years.
I happen to know, a lot of people ask me, oh, you know any attorneys in my area? I happen to know a kick-ass CPS attorney in your area.
Okay.
And tomorrow, I want you to give me a call, and I'm going to look at my Rolodex for his number and information, and see if you can contact his law firm and see if they will be able to help you.
Okay, because I did have a bad attorney. Like, I mean, hands down, probably one of the best attorneys she got my kids back, but she took another position, and she paved the way for my case to be closed. And she asked that my case be closed prior to her resigning, but that didn't happen. The courts decided that they weren't going to close my case, and then that, I felt like, opened the door for DCS to move back in to take my kids again, because now I'm back at the public, indigence office
Pretender.
again. Yeah.
What'd you say, Deidre?
Pretender.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't want to offend anybody, so I didn't want.
Deidre's not concerned about that.
I already lost a child. I'm not concerned about speaking the truth.
And I guess another one of my frustration is that, so I have a significant other. We have been
You have
together.
a what?
I have a significant other. I have a
Okay, so-
or fiance, husband, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
He has a little girl, and DCS won't touch that little girl, but DCS will not give him my boys. They will not let him have guardianship. They will not let him have anything. I've said, give him my boys. Let him take my boys. I will leave. Like, I will leave. Let him take them. Let him be kinship. Let him be anything. Nothing. They won't let him touch the kids.
What he has to do is he has to get a lawyer and go to CPS court to get custody of your children.
Okay.
There's some things that he can file, motions, petitions, and the such, that he can get heard by the judge and hopefully convince the judge to give him your 2 children.
Because, I mean, he was a safety monitor when all this went down. So there was 2 safety monitors. So with my friend relinquishing her rights, why, as a safety monitor, why did the kids get taken into custody when there was their dad? Because that's what the boys call him, is their dad. Why wasn't he able to step in and be that safety monitor, even though he was already one? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense other than, some social worker is, got something going on with you.
That's what it is the supervisor does not like me because I advocate for my children. I fight for my boys. I fight for what is in the best interest of my children. When their needs aren't being met in my home or out of my home, I fight for them, because that's what a mother's supposed to do.
You know, I'm beginning to slowly change my opinion about a rule that I had, you know, for the past 37 years. And that was I would advise people not to get, um, you know, the media, the news involved. And I think a lot of things have happened over these years that I'm now changing my mind about that. You're now seeing more stories, more news stories about CPS snafus, you know, from all over the country. I mean, there's someone that sends me, they have some type of Google alert. You familiar with that, Mr. G?
I
Google
am what you're
alerts.
talking. Yes, sir.
So when anything hits Google about CPS, Child Protective Services, that is, they get it and they send it to me, and it's an article or a video or something in the news, and I'm talking about all over the country about, you know, CPS kind of making mistakes. And I think now is the time. I think if you have a problem, you should voice your problem um, to the media or to those in power. You know, your state legislators, your state senators, your congressmen, your senators. You know, there's a woman. She was on a show earlier on our platform. Her name is Connie, and I hope I don't
Regularly.
regulate. Yes, and she has had great success in the state of Tennessee, bringing things, political things, and trying to change laws. Now, the unfortunate thing is that she
They
became a target
trashed that
herself.
woman.
She became a target herself, but I think she's going to weather this storm. I hope she does, and but she's definitely one that will put it out there for the public to see. And if you are having problems, I would suggest you talk to your attorney. Don't do anything without your attorney, but talk to your attorney about the possibility of taking this thing public. You don't have to mention any names, but you know, you can file a complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services in DC. You can file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division there in your area in Arizona. And I know Arizona is one of those state administered states, so you can, you know, where's the capital of Arizona?
In Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. So you can contact those in Phoenix and that, you know, control CPS and file a complaint because, you know, listen, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes I can just talk to people and I can, you know, determine if there's an issue. And every once in a while, you know, I get someone like you that calls in, and you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, what could she have done? You know, right? I mean, she's either completely lying to me, which is possible, or I'm completely misreading this. Now, the probability of that is small, but it does happen. But I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about, like, what in the world could they have on this lady, right? And typically, I think to myself, the first reaction I have is, social worker must not like her. I see that in cases all the time. Social worker gets a bug up her, you know what, and you know you can't do anything.
Does she have that kick-ass attorney in the beginning that wanted to close her case but resigned? Now they're coming back for payback or whatever, retaliation.
And that's literally what I feel like it is retaliation. And like at the time when the caseworker came out to my house, and mind you, she was out monthly, she was like, it was a different supervisor, and she would stay for like 10-15 minutes. She would see the boys and she would leave. And then when we had this mental health meeting that was mysterious, and during this mental health meeting, it was the worst professional meeting I have ever attended. And it was disgusting. And
you know, some of these people, you know, they want you to get a mental health assessment. I actually think
They
some of
need
these
them.
people should be getting a mental health assessment because I mean, some of these people, you know, I don't know what it is. You know, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, I think we've given as a society too much power to CPS workers and without any checks and balances.
Correct.
You know, and all in the name of saving children. I mean, who's going to argue against that until you realize what's actually being done in the name of saving children?
You can't give someone freshly out of college, the card to play God. I mean,
Right.
they don't even realize what life is yet. They've just graduated school, and they're putting them into these lead positions as CPS supervisors. They've never even seen a kid in their life, let alone be able to dictate what happens with them.
Mhm.
And then you're going to be like, hey, guess what? You get this card right here that says whether a family can exist or not. Go with it, do with it what you will, and off they go. I mean, and no one, these supervisors, like you said, they either restructure, they're getting moved left and right, no one has the same supervisors through any case. Like, what happens to these people? Like, what is going on with this? I think this system is being overblown by corruption, and then you have the real people that are trying to help and try to do things properly, and there's your off balance of everything. I mean, 87% of the time they're wrong in their assessments. That's what the stats are saying. I mean, that's a big number to be wrong, an
Right.
overall assessment. And
Right.
how can you have a division of government that is running efficiently and properly if your rate is 87% of failure? I mean, it just makes no sense.
The funding needs to be reversed, meaning they should be getting money to reunify the children back to their
Well,
family,
that's what
not
it's
the
supposed to
other
be
way.
for.
Yeah, because all the incentives are for the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had 17 different caseworkers in my case in the 5.5 years. So, I mean, they don't stay. The one I have now, I don't even think she has children, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah, they never usually do.
And it's funny because we live in such a small town, you can see them. Like, I've seen her supervisor and her husband have a domestic in a store. And then I've seen, my caseworker buying a fifth of Jack Daniels. Like,
Oh no!
and I'm like, how? But I can't drink. I can't,
Right.
you
Was
sign
it? Was
you.
it? Wait.
I
Was
think
it
that's the first.
Was it Jack Daniel's Black Label or Green Label? Or
I don't.
Oh, no,
I
which
don't
one was
too
know.
specific.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
you did too specific.
I took off running down the aisle because I was so. It was like 2 days after they removed my kids. I wasn't sleeping. Like, I mean, they removed my kids. I became homeless. Like, all in like 10 minutes.
Oh, I would have
So
been taking pictures of that
Oh,
social
I was
worker.
I
right
wanted
next to her.
to.
Made her
I
as
wanted
uncomfortable as
to.
possible.
I wanted to, but you know what? I knew that karma would get her, and that's how I feel. Is karma will get her. But
I feel like it never does get those people for some reason. I feel like the bad people, they succeed and they just keep going and going. I don't know. I feel like the good people are always the ones that do the littlest thing wrong and then the world comes at them. But
Well, Jennifer, I do want you to call me so I can, hook you up with this guy and see if he
please.
can help you.
Is this 1-800 number? Is that the number I would call on the screen?
It's actually a 1-888 number.
Okay. It's
You
like
see it
right
on
there.
your-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. Okay.
888.
we need a state captain for
888
Arizona, don't we, Mr. Davis?
6582. We do.
What do
I'm
we
glad
need?
you
Want to
brought that up.
be? We need a state captain for Arizona.
So
I
we
mean,
A team captain. A team captain.
I don't know what that entails, but I mean, I'm totally down. I mean, I advocate for a lot of moms here in the city.
Perfect.
I'm big with my mouth, and I think that may be what has gotten me in trouble is because I don't sit down and shut up. These are, this is my life. Like, I gave birth to these kids. Like, I didn't ask God for all of these issues and these problems. They're mine, but I make them mine, and I think that's the biggest issue. It's why DCS hates me is I don't sit down. I don't shut up. I call them on their crap. And that's just, I mean, I think that's maybe why I'm losing my kids, that's.
Hey, Grace, our producer, I want you to listen to this. Jennifer is going to be nominated to be the Arizona State Captain, so please contact her and explain to her what we're doing. Hey, Jennifer, I have another guest I have to bring on, and
Yes, thank you for allowing me to talk. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's not easy to do, especially when you have an open CPS case. There's always a chance that the social workers, and I've been told that they watch the show and, they might retaliate against you.
And at this point, a retaliation is already going to happen, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Mhm.
I want my kids to know that I lost fighting. That's what I want them to know.
You
That I
got it.
fought everything I have in me to
Mhm.
get my kids back. And if I lose them, it's because I fought.
Just keep fighting. Just keep fighting.
Okay, Jennifer, we'll be in touch. Thank you
Thank you.
again. Okay. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I'm down here in LA, but I do cases all over California, and I went up into a Northern California, I won't say the county, to do a case, and the county council announces to the judge when we call the case. She says, "Judge, I want you to report Mr. Davis to the California State Bar." Like, why? And she said, "Well, he has a show on the internet, and he talked about the case that he's here on, and mentioned my name." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. I can talk about whoever I want.
Hmm.
I can't mention the kid's name, and I respect that. And by the way, I didn't mention your name. My client did. Go back and watch it." And I said, "Well, Your Honor, I think we're treading on some First Amendment issues."
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, "I'm not going to do anything. Let's just do this case."
Right. It's so funny, isn't it? Funny that you
and it's kind of it's kind of a small county. Like, how would you even know to watch that episode?
Mhm.
We have so many shows on this channel. How would you even know unless you're like watching all of my shows or something?
Mm-hmm.
So they do watch. Hey guys, I'm going to bring on a guy, our next guest. His name is Mike. Mike Bartz. How are you, sir?
Doing very well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Good. I love that flag there.
Air Force.
As I get older, I just turned 65, by the way. As I get older, I feel more patriotic. As I look around and I see what we can do, what we have available to us as compared to the rest of the world. And it really is, it's kind of it really is an amazing place to live.
I heard the Marine Corps is looking for some good men.
Semper Fi.
65 years old.
Were you in the Corps?
No, I was actually in the Air Force. I was a Chair Force.
Oh, you were one of those smart guys in the Air Force. Well, all this, I don't know, Darren and Miss Payne, if you know this, but
I did
you
10
have
years.
to be really smart to get in the Air Force. No joke.
Yeah. No,
All
my
this-
dad was
Don't
in
you
the
have
Air
to
Force
have
for 23
20/20
years.
vision? Don't you even have to have 20/20 vision and stuff? Like that even technical? Or no?
Oh, I had 20/20 vision. My hearing was perfect. I
Yeah.
scored I became an air traffic controller in the Air Force. So
What was your
10.
What was your MOS?
274, which is air traffic control radar.
Very good. Look, he even had a really good job. He went out there carrying an M16, huh?
No, sir.
So you are from North Carolina.
North Carolina, originally from Michigan.
A couple years ago, maybe not even a couple years ago, I was in Greensboro doing a CPS case. Where are you in relation to Greensboro?
I'm down by Charlotte, so Greensboro is up by Raleigh, Durham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm about 3 hours south of there, around the Charlotte.
Okay, that was a very, very interesting experience doing a case in Greensboro.
North Carolina is kind of a unique bird in the fact that the counties run their own DSS. We call them DSS down here instead of CPS or DFS, DHS or whatever you call it. We call it DSS down here.
So what's going on with you in North Carolina and the
DSS?
DSS?
I ultimately have a question, but it's going to take some groundwork to get to that question. So if you just be a little bit patient with me, I'll try not to run on. I'll just give you the clip notes real quick.
Okay.
I am not far behind you. I'm 60 years old. I'm one of those really dim-witted older men. I married a girl 30 years my junior. Short of the high fives I get from some of my buddies, it was the dumbest thing I ever did.
Mike, I'm 65. I already knew that was a mistake.
Oh man. At least he said it.
Yeah, I mean, a few chest bumps and high fives, it ain't worth it. Just
And here we are.
And all of a sudden, now at 60 years old, I have a 18-month-old
Yeah.
baby.
Oh.
Well, good for you, man.
No, I shouldn't be changing.
Oh, I think you're just opening the door for CPS on this one.
Between the two of them, I'm surprised I don't have a heroin addiction, honestly, or alcohol.
Oh man.
So anyways, that's a baby boomer married to a millennial.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a real old Gen Xer or a young baby boomer. A baby boomer married to a millennial. That was oil and water right from the get-go. But anyways, we ended up with married for 7 years now. Had our daughter, like I said, 18 months ago. The bad thing is there's a whole bunch of things that happened at once. I don't know if you can see the scar on top of my head here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a tumor, and I was having 30 to 40 seizures, grand mal seizures a day. And it was getting to be too much. The doctor pretty much told me, he says, the tumor's not going to kill you. It's going to be the seizures. My mother passed away in 1999 from brain cancer, and I watched what they did to her, getting treatment for her, and I swore I wasn't going to do it. Then I found out my wife, who wasn't supposed to get pregnant, or wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant, got pregnant. And then she gave birth December 14th. I'm sorry, December 14th. Don't tell my daughter I did that. December 14th, my daughter was born. I had my brain surgery, the craniotomy, and took the tumor out less than a month later. Within a month of me getting out of the hospital, my wife had to go back to work, and she works for a government agency delivering postcards and mail. So I don't know if you can guess what she does. So they pretty much put a gun to her head and said, get back to work. So my wife returned to work, and then all of a sudden, and I was still recovering from my brain surgery, and I have some lasting ramifications. Dexterity, my dexterity is really poor now. My fine motor skills are really poor. My speech has gotten worse. Really, I mean, nothing that can't be lived with. I actually am more emotional now. I'm more sensitive now than I've ever been. I honestly could give a rat's butt about anybody or anything or anywhere, anytime. I thought I was the best in the world. When I wore a younger man's clothes, you couldn't beat me, and I was that. I was that guy. And now I cry at TV commercials, and my daughter gives me a hug, I cry. It's really embarrassing now. So caught my wife in a few lies, and I'm real big on trust, and so I caught my wife in a few just stupid lies for no reason at all. And it just kept happening over and over and over. Asked her for a divorce between Christmas and New Year's. Asked her for a divorce. Or told her that, don't ever do that, by the way, you guys. Don't ever tell them you want to.
I was going to say between Christmas and New Year's.
Just done. Don't even stop and talk about it. Just do it. Do what I say. Just do it. So anyways, I told her, I said, I think it's time for us to get divorced. I think our marriage has run its course. And boy, did she get mad. She got totally mad. I mean, I've never seen such a rage in a woman. Oh, it's saying hell have no fury. I figured out. And then the next thing I know, I'm being arrested January 2nd, the day after New Year's. I get arrested for domestic violence. I'm like, really? Okay, let's figure this one out. I got out the next day. She showed up at my bond hearing and told the judge, I didn't want him arrested. I just wanted him out of the way. My judge, the judge at my bail hearing, liked to spit out his fake teeth. I mean, he just was like, couldn't believe she just said that in court. So anyways, I was released on the 2nd. January 11th of the same, or now remember, my daughter's birthday is January 14th. On January 11th, my wife showed up here with local police department to get some belongings. Of course, I didn't argue, fuss, or fight. Invited them in, had the police officer standing right here next to me. She come carrying a duffel bag, and it was just a regular duffel bag, so heavy she couldn't even pick it up. So I said, do you mind if I look? And I asked the officer. He said, no, go ahead. So I looked, and there she had all my medical records for my brain surgery. I have a $10,000 German Shepherd. She had all his paperwork. It was just ridiculous of the paperwork she had. That had nothing to do with her. And so she got mad because I caught her, and the officer's, ma'am, you can't do that. That's civil. If he doesn't agree with you having it, you got to wait till civil court, yada, yada, yada. So she picks up a smaller duffel bag that had my daughter's clothes in it and smacked me in the head with it. Now, remember, I had brain surgery. My head should be off limits to anybody, or at least I would think they would. You know, I wouldn't fight me with brain surgery. And so, and that was on the 11th. And she left mad. I almost ran into the officer's car and everything. I mean, she was just even more mad than what she was before that. January 12th. I have 6 police officers and DSS standing at my door, knocking on the door. They want to serve me with a restraining order. And I'm like, I'm not answering the door. Good luck with that, guys. You know, for one, I don't like talking to the cops, and I just think government agencies should stay out of people's lives. So I didn't answer the door and called my wife, and I said, hey, what'd you say or do now? She goes, what do you mean? I was like, cops are here. She goes, yeah, they just want to serve you with a restraining order. I was like, okay, no, that's not going to happen. And come to find out, the restraining order was more than just a restraining order. It was to remove me out of my home, take my daughter from me, because my daughter was staying with me at the time. Take my daughter from me, remove me out of the home, seize my weapons. It was everything. I mean, it was just clean slate. And of course, I didn't answer the door, so I didn't get served. Now, on the 19th of January was the hearing for they call them 50Bs down here, or restraining order, protection orders. On the 19th was the hearing to extend it or cancel it or something like that, where she never even showed up to court because she knew I had her on the ropes. She knew I was going to be able to prove that she was BSing. So on the 19th, they canceled the 50B and dismissed the 50B because she didn't show up to court. On February 2nd was the hearing for my domestic violence. And of course, out of nowhere, while I'm sitting there in court after 2 hours, I get notified that they dismissed the case. She had dropped the charges and convinced the district attorney to drop the charges, citing, believe it or not, TBI, traumatic brain injury. And I've served with guys that had traumatic brain injury. Do not have traumatic brain injury. And I was so insulted because I had this brain surgery done for the most honorable reasons I could ever imagine. It's the one most unselfish thing I ever did in my life. And I did this so I could help raise my daughter. I did it for my wife and my daughter. And that's why I did it. And they relegated it to a misdiagnosis, and they're not even doctors. So that frustrated me really bad. So anyways, and that was on the 2nd of February. I'm sorry, 2nd of February. Well, see, on the 1st of February, I didn't know, but she had signed a safety agreement with DSS. And part of the safety agreement with DSS states something of, you can cancel this, change it, or anything at any point. And it says see bottom of the page. And of course, you go to the bottom of the page and it tells you that fill this out and contact us and you can cancel it. Well, if you don't go back and finish reading that same sentence or that same paragraph, you'll see that if you cancel it or if you go against it, that DSS pretty much has the right to take your kids. And she signed it. And that was on February 1st. She signed that. Like I said, she didn't show up to court on the 2nd. Dismissed the domestic violence. So the 50B's dismissed, protection orders dismissed, and the domestic violence is dismissed, which me and my attorney were more than prepared to handle and get into. And so that was the end. I thought that was the end. And I'm watching my daughter every day. I mean, every day. My wife and I are not living together. Every day she brings her to me every morning and picks her up every evening, and no problem at all. I'm basically a glorified babysitter. I just, I can't do nothing else. So I just take care of my daughter, which is kind of weird for me. I mean, she's the breadwinner. I'm not. I'm the stay-at-home dad, and she's not. So, long story short, my wife ends up what I believe with postpartum depression, for one, because she got to go back to work so soon after having the baby, and two, what they call caregivers grief or depression, because she no longer had to take care of me. I didn't need her anymore, if that makes sense. On top of that, she's a kid, or I did say that out loud, didn't I? She's a millennial. She wants things now. She doesn't have patience. She wants it right now. Hell, I don't care what's in my way. I want it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And she wanted what she wanted. And she wanted this house. She wanted my daughter. She wants the divorce now, which is great with me. Works for me. But anyway, she moved in with her mother. And this is where DSS first screwed up. DSS, when they did the safety agreement, made her mother and her stepfather the protection people, whatever that is, where they stay there and they watch over my daughter and my wife and keep them safe and keep them protected. Well, mother's a convicted drunk, convicted multiple times, DUI drunk. And the stepfather is a convicted strong arm felon, 8 years, and has weapons in the house. And DSS gave them
they're the protectors.
Protect my daughter. Now, I know nothing about this. I don't know if I said this yet, but I know nothing. I haven't been notified by nobody. I haven't been told anything. I haven't received a phone call. My wife is bringing the daughter to me. And on the same safety plan, she agreed that I would have supervised visit, or I would have no contact. She gave herself supervised visitation with her mother. And I have not been notified at all yet, at all. I haven't talked to nobody. DSS, nobody. My wife hasn't even told me. Grandparents, mother hasn't said a word to me. That's probably because I'm older than her mom. That's beside the point.
Oh.
Now you know why I'm not a popular guy around here. I'm closer to her grandparents' age than I am.
Oh, Lordy.
So, you don't know the half of it. I've heard all the jokes, and I've pretty much told them on myself, so don't worry about it. It's all good. So, on March 3rd, I have a fleet, and I mean a fleet, at least 8 squad cars, and with that show up, there was 2 or 3 DSS vehicles, and there were 2 deep in each one of those vehicles, and they surrounded this house.
Wow.
And I've got security cameras that told me they were showing up. I mean, as soon as they passed my security cameras, you start emailing me, and they were going nuts. So I walked out the front door. It was probably the stupidest thing I ever did in my life. I walked out the front door, And they proceed to tail me. And this DSS worker stands behind a police officer saying, "We've got custody of your daughter." I was like, "You ain't got custody of squat." And of course, I wasn't very nice. And they said, "Is she in the house?" I was like, "Nope." "Why? What are you going to do? You're going to go in my house and get her if she was?" And they said, "Yep." And of course, that's when, protective daddy kicks in.
Uh-oh.
And daddy says, "Well, we're lucky she's not here then, because it would be World War III down here. You don't want to go in that house after my daughter. You're not going to try and take her." So after about a week of back and forth with the police officers, my wife showed up, and I had no idea that she was gone. So anyways, she got an argument with her mother, and she grabbed my daughter and split. DSS went into panic mode. So DSS went on the 3rd and filed for non-secured custody and was granted non-secure custody by a judge. So they effectively took custody of my daughter on the 3rd. My wife finally surrendered my daughter on the 7th when she got back. She finally surrendered her on the 7th. Now, remember, I have not spoke to anybody at this point. I had my first court hearing on the 7th, on the morning of the 7th. And the only way I found out about that was in one of the DSS caseworkers that came out with the police officers, told me I had court on the 7th. That was the only way I found out about it. So I went, and it was the first time I spoke to a supervisor and the caseworker. Very first time. And from the allegations that were put against me, and I said, "Well, they've been dismissed." And they said, "We don't care. Cases get dismissed all the time. We're going to go forward with this." And I said, "So it is about domestic violence?" They said, "No, it's not about domestic violence. Now, domestic violence is what started the whole thing rolling. It was your wife leaving with your child that actually got it put in non-secure custody." I said, "Okay." So long story short, back and forth. First, we got visitations finally. And I went and visited my daughter. My wife went and visited my daughter first. And my wife seen bug bites, I guess, on her private areas, on her butt, backside, and her front side. So my wife goes into panic mode. And she starts, just ripping these people at DSS. Of course, they're all mad. And so it's my turn to visit. Well, DSS comes in here, interrupts my visitation, and strips my daughter down in front of me. The most degrading, disgusting thing ever happened to me in my life. I never shook so hard in my life. They did that right in front of me. Didn't bat an eye. Stripped her down naked. Started taking pictures of her. Right in front of me. And didn't explain nothing. Didn't say 2 words to me. At this point, I pretty much figured out I'm a second-class citizen here. I'm just the father. I'm not the mother. And I'm an accused abuser, not convicted, not, nothing serious or nothing substantiated. So I've been relegated to second-class citizen. And so I have nothing to lose, I figured. So I started being Mike Bartz, and I'm an equal opportunity jerk. I treat everybody equally, like a jerk. And so the supervisor comes in and she starts taking pictures of my daughter. I was like, "How fast would you arrest me if those pictures were on my phone?"
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
She did not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next thing I know, security guards are walking me out the door, which I thought was humorous.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so long story short, she was in there from March 7th. We had our adjudication 3 weeks ago. Now, I, at this point, have gone through 2 attorneys. One attorney just never showed up to court anymore, these court-appointed attorneys. He just never came to court. He was too busy or couldn't find his way to court or whatever it was. I never did hear. Asked for another court-appointed attorney, and I was told, "No, you got to deal with it." And And I said, okay. So anyways, I guess one day he just decided he wanted to withdraw. So he withdrew without me even being there. And the judge finally said, okay, we'll give you another court-appointed attorney. This court-appointed attorney wanted to talk to me in the hallway before the case. He didn't want to meet in his office. He just wanted to talk 2 minutes before court. And I made an appointment to go see him in his office. So I sat down in his office, and the only thing I wanted to be was heard. I told him, I described to him how I've been treated. I just want to be heard. I don't want to be a second-class citizen. I want somebody to know that I'm here. I haven't missed a visitation. I haven't missed a court date. I've checked on my daughter every 2 days. I contact the caseworker, seeing how my daughter is. She's okay, checking, bringing stuff for her, as she needs it. So I'm a very involved father. And he tells me to shut my mouth and sit down, and I'm like, well, you're not going to work out, because this
can't get it happen.
Equal opportunity jerk.
Yeah.
And so he says, well, I could just withdraw then. I was like, can you do it now? Do you got to wait until court? And now I'm 6'7", 300 pounds. And I've got tattoos all over me and bald head, goatee. I'm not the prettiest thing in town.
6'7".
And I tend to be people tend to be a little intimidated because I'm such a big guy. And this attorney was 5'2", I swear to God.
Yeah.
And he's going to tell me to shut up and sit down. And I'm like,
Sit down.
how this works out. So anyways, he withdrew, and this was the day of our adjudication. He withdrew, and the judge says, Mr. Bartz, you're going to have to hire an attorney, or you're going to have to represent yourself. I said, I'm ready. Let's go. I watched a lot of your videos, and I figured, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
No, Mr. Davis says, don't do that.
You must have missed that video.
Yes.
Represent yourself. I must have missed that.
Don't you heart surgery on yourself, so don't represent yourself.
Yeah, but I've also seen in his videos I'm not supposed to be on social media doing this either. So. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right.
You're right.
Well,
So
here we all are now.
So the judge says, no,
That's off the bag now.
let's set this for a different date. And I remember watching one of your videos about documents you can request. Not just the files from DSS, but all the documents that I can request under discovery. So that instead of going home, I just stayed right there at the courthouse and I requested all these documents via discovery. And I got an email pretty much said, you're going to get what we give you. You're not going to get everything you requested. I was, well, isn't that sweet? And so I took what he gave me and I was like, okay. And he had all the answers to everything I was looking for. And then all of a sudden on the day of our adjudication, my wife meets me at the top of the stairs by the elevators and says, they're going to let her come home today.
Huh.
I'm like, something's really sketchy. She goes, yeah, she gets to come home today with me. And I was like, she does. I was like, and what about me? She goes, well, you're stuck with supervised visitation. And I don't know how to put this any other way other than, oh, hell no. And I said, no, can't happen. And now I'm acting my own attorney. And so I get called into the side room there by the courtroom, and there's the prosecuting attorney, the DSS manager, the person that actually runs DSS, she's in there. My caseworker's in there, the supervisor's in there. And they start off with, okay, you get 4 hours of visitation or supervised visitation. I'm like, that ain't gonna work. I was like, and I explained to them that I was the caretaker. My wife has never spent more than 2 hours alone with her by herself. I was the caretaker. I was like, everybody loves my daughter and everybody loves my daughter. That's because she's a product of me, because of my personality, of what me spending 12 hours a day, 6 days a week with her. And so it went from that to I negotiated one heck of a little deal for us. She came home to us. I got to keep her during the day. My wife got her at night when she got done with work, but I kept her during the day. And then, you know, we did that for 3 months, and then they'll give us 50-50 joint custody. And my house didn't have to be inspected or anything like that. And so, I mean, I was good with it. So I had to agree to the adjudication. And of course, I didn't stand mute. I stood something else. I can't think of the word. Well, I didn't agree or disagree.
No contest.
Pardon me?
No contest.
It wasn't a no contest. It was, I mean, there was a specific word for it. Nulls or something like that. But anyways, so that was the adjudication. And of course, me being me, you know, I screwed that up. I promise you, I knew it when they laid it down, I was going to mess it up. And I told them I was going to mess it up. And I did. We were directed to do a child exchange at this child exchange safety zones, which is right there at the sheriff's department. And we did the exchange every morning and every evening. And my wife was supposed to pay me. And that, of course, grinded her. She was, you know, and the judge told her, he says, it's cheaper to pay him for daycare, for taking care of the child, than it is for you to pay daycare. Trust and believe that. So she agreed to pay it. Well, she showed up with a money order, and I didn't want no money order. And so, long story short, the money order went back and forth for a couple days. And then at the safety exchange zone, the last time I threw that money order back in her car, told her I didn't want it. You can't cash those things anymore. So I wanted to give my daughter a kiss goodbye, because she just snatched her and ran with her. And I was like, I'm giving my daughter a kiss goodbye. I don't care what you say. I don't care if cops are upset or not upset. So anyways, the cop gets out of he was actually across the street where he wasn't supposed to be. He was across the street. He drove over there, jumped out of his squad car, and he looked me dead in the eye, and I knew I was in trouble. I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. So anyways, he tells me to start heading to my truck. I said, no. I was like, I go to jail over my daughter. I'm kissing her goodbye. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. I'm kissing my daughter goodbye. He said, well, go ahead then. I said, okay. So,
You would.
I kissed my daughter, and he says, now get to your truck. And he pulled out his taser.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
I said, what are you going to do with that? He said, I'm going to tase you. And I was like, I'll bet you it don't work. And I was talking all kinds of smack. So you knew I screwed that up. So he tased me, and I just ripped the cords out. And he was freaked out. But I turned around, I saw 3 squad cars pull in. I don't know how many it was going to take, but I know how many they were going to use. And so I just pretty much gave up at that point. They arrested me and charged me with failure to obey or something like that. And I mean, something really stupid. And the guy and the cop that had me arrested, the first cop that was on scene, the guy that tased me, I was like, where do I know you from? He says, I worked at the DSS building. I was like, that's right. You're the cop that walked me down the stairs when I asked the supervisor if she would arrest me if I had those pictures on my phone. He said, yeah, that was me. I was like, okay, great. Nice to meet you. I'll see you again. He says, yeah. He said, I was also the guy that took your daughter from your wife when she showed up to hand her over. I was like, so you had a soft spot. So you knew that was her. He says, yeah, I knew that was you when you got there early. So, I mean, it was pretty much predicted what was going to happen. So anyways, I got charged with that. And then within 3 days of that, we had our disposition hearing, our disposition hearing. And then they went back and changed everything. And now they got me back on supervised visitation. And they took the domestic violence classes away and gave me anger management classes. I don't know what that does, but like I've got anger issues, and I'm like, no, I got an ex-wife issue.
Yeah. CPS issue.
So
You
anyway,
better tell them that you're learning from this anger management class, though, and not be you, or else you'll end up worse off.
I'm
Play
from
the
North-
game, like Mr. Davis says.
And the best thing is, I'm in a small town, North Carolina. Population nada. And I'm from northern Michigan, so I'm a northerner. On top of that, I'm ex-military.
You probably already made the headline news.
So yeah, I just tend to rub people wrong just immediately. And I'm so big, they're just not going to walk up and smack me. So I get away with a whole lot of stuff. And so yeah, I knew I was going to screw that up, and I did. I screwed it up. So anyways, my wife has my daughter now. But during one of my supervised visitations, and I record everything. I have one of those cute little spy pens that I record everything with. And one of the visitations, and here's the question. I'm heading towards the question now. I went to change my daughter's diaper. The caseworker that was staying in there babysitting us, she barged in the room, said, "There's a bruise on your daughter. Just figured I'd tell you." I was like, okay. And I was expecting just a small bruise on her thigh. And she said something about, kids this age, because she just learned how to walk, fall and get hurt all the time when they get bruises, and they get bruises. I was like, I understand. I dropped my daughter's diaper, and by her thigh, not the thigh bone, not the hip bone, not her thigh, but right there at the soft spot, right there right by her private area, there's one big bruise, and I mean bruise. And I was shocked by how big and how dark and how big this bruise was. And I said, "That's not a bruise. That's more than a bruise." And the caseworker came running in. And she goes, "What are you saying?" I was like, "That is an injury." I was like, "That's not a bruise. That's an injury." And she says, "Well, it didn't look like that when I looked at it." I was like, "Well, it looks like that now." And so
I was just so defensive from the get-go.
Yeah. And so the next thing I know, here comes the supervisor that likes to strip my daughter down naked. And I told her, "You're not doing it this time. I'm sorry. You want pictures of my daughter? I'll get them for you. But you're not stripping my daughter down." And I was like, "And how do I file a complaint?" And so I filed a complaint with, like I said, their county ran down here. So I called up to Raleigh and filed a complaint. Well, Raleigh sent it back down to Mecklenburg County because they can't investigate themselves. So they have to send it to another county to investigate. And it took them 3 months. But anyways, I get this investigation back, or I get a letter or after my disposition hearing. So, it did me no good whatsoever because I could have used it for leverage one way or another. So I get this letter back saying, "Yes, we found your claim has been substantiated." And I think I sent you a copy of that letter in an email. It has been there has been sufficient information found during the investigation assessment to substantiate the following: neglect in the form of injurious environment. Your daughter had visible markings and bruisings that did not receive immediate medical care. Foster parent unable to discern cause. So my question is, what do I do? I can only imagine my daughter laying there, looking for me to help her, protect her, and I couldn't.
Do you want to sue them, or do you want
I don't know
someone
what
to
to
be
do.
further investigated?
I've contacted attorneys down here. They're all scared of DSS down here.
Well, this is what I would do, because apparently your child was abused while in is the child in foster care or with the mother?
With the mother. She's
So
out
apparently,
with her mother.
So what I would do is I would file a complaint with the state, with the federal government, Department of Health and Human Services, with the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and of course with the state office. And I would request that an investigation be done with respect to the child abuse that apparently DSS has chosen not to investigate.
Well, they investigated. They found it was substantiated, and I mean,
Yeah, but who did it?
the DSS in Mecklenburg County, out of Mecklenburg County, different county.
Yeah, but if they investigated, did they come to a conclusion of who was responsible?
No, they said the foster care was unable to discern the cause of it.
Of course.
It did happen while she was in foster care.
When you say foster care, you don't mean with the mother, right?
No, sir. I mean with an actual foster care. We didn't get her back. We didn't get her back until about 3 weeks ago. And this happened on, and I filed the report on 3/15.
So what I would do is I would also file a complaint and ask for an investigation, further investigation of the foster parent. And then when you get the child back, I'd probably sue the foster parent. Because it's one of those types of injuries that, from what you described, that couldn't have happened, by accident. And either it was intentional or it was negligence. Either way, the child was injured and someone should be held responsible.
And the social workers seem to know about it beforehand as to when you were about to see it yourself. Or that's what I got from you telling the story.
So what now?
It was almost like she knew too much about it before.
They knew way too much about it, and they were just too anxious to try and circumvent the whole thing or stop me from changing the diaper or whatever.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So those are the things that I think you should do. And if you didn't get them all down in the notes, this show will be on the internet forever.
Okay.
On Facebook and YouTube, so you can go back and fast forward. And
You got all my bad jokes in my crying,
Yeah. Hey, Mike, we've come to the end of our show. I hope I answered your question sufficiently. I do want to thank you for coming on and telling us that story.
Thank
And I
you for
want
your
to ask
service
you
too, man.
Yes, thank you for your service. I want to know if you want to join us in our crusade to change CPS. We need a state captain in North Carolina. We're going to do this by gathering people to vote in blocks.
Change or dismantle.
Whatever it takes.
You'll take them all down.
I'd be more than happy to. I mean, I cannot believe how many people have actually reached out to me during this whole process.
So, Grace, I want you to contact Mike, ex-U.S. Air Force, get his information, and we're going to put him on the list, and we're going to start our process. Okay? Hey, Mike, thank you again for being on.
Thank you.
Copy down my number. Keep in touch, and we look forward to working with you. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Also, I want to get anybody that's out there don't use me as an example on how to do things because I did it all.
His own disclaimer.
I would have to second that.
From the start of your story, your millennium story.
Use his own T-shirt. This is a Mike disclaimer.
Here's rule number 1. Don't marry a woman 30 years your junior.
That's 30 years under.
That's number 1.
And you wouldn't believe it, and find yourself a good support person, somebody that is there to support you.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I think my wife is snapped. I think, she's, because it's not the woman I married. Between the postpartum depression and caregiver's depression, she snapped. It's just unbelievable. So, but anyways, about 6 years ago, she introduced me to a woman.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, a friend of her family's. And believe it or not, this woman's 64 years old too. So, but this woman should hate me, should not want anything to do with me. and she's my #1 supporter, and she's just an awesome woman. She was actually my wife's was supposed to marry her son.
Oh, wow.
So it's her, and
Soap opera.
Yeah,
she's known her for 15, 20 years. And she introduced me by chance. But anyways, so now she's my #1 supporter. And I think it's because I saved her son from marrying this woman. That's my opinion. But, I don't know
Oh, she'll support your misery as long as it's not hers.
But she, yeah.
Oh.
But
Hey,
she's great. I just want
you
to
know
say,
what? You know what? Also, Grace, I want you to make a note. I want you to talk to Mr. G about having his own show 2 to 3 times a week, and I want you to talk to Mike about being a host on his own show.
Oh, that would be a riot. That would be funny. What not to
Mike,
do in CPS.
Hey, Mike, I want to thank you again, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Mr. Davis, thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it. You guys be good now. Stay out of trouble.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, we've gone a little over the time. Anything you want to say before I hurry off to eat dinner?
What do you do? What is that? If your kids are harmed while they're in foster care, because you hear this so many times, you hear so many people talk about this, and they turn their situation into focusing on the injury of their child, which naturally you do as a parent. You want to take care of your child, but that doesn't stay the course for your own case. So advice for people that are turning their focus to the abuse that they're finding their children are getting in foster care, opposed to handling their own situations.
Well, just what I told Mike. I think you're going to have to report it and bring a lawsuit. There's not much else you can do. I mean, out of all the things that you could be afraid of, I mean, that's like the worst.
Right.
Worst, nightmare come true. Ms. Payne, did you want to say anything before we sign off?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. I love the model cars behind you, by the way.
They're Legos.
They're Legos.
They're all Legos.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Legos
I don't
are
know if you
crazy.
can see 'em.
Look at those.
I mean, we have the whole city town in our other room. We have them all over. I don't know if you can see them. But way up there, those are all Legos too. Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse.
You've been to
Our
Legoland?
kids got us into it, and it's a very expensive hobby. Let me tell you that much.
I know. You've been to Legoland?
But no, I have not been to Legoland. But I've been to the Lego store quite enough times.
That's why you can't go to Legoland, because you've been to the store.
I know, really. Oh, wow. It is such an expensive hobby. I think I'm more addicted now than my kids are.
Yeah.
But it's something that me and my husband did during our whole CPS case to pass the time, that's for sure. As sad as that sounds. But
all right, folks. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
Okay. Have a good night.